morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 10th anniversary edition of the Telecoms Consumer Parliament. My name is Alero Edu, and I'm going to be your linksman through today's program. To get this anniversary program going, I'd like to invite the Director of Consumer Affairs Bureau, Hajia Mariam Bayi, for her opening remarks.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this very important occasion, the 10th anniversary of the Telecoms Consumer Parliament being held here in Lagos. The Telecom Consumer Parliament, launched by the Nigerian Communications Commission in the year 2003, is the first of its kind across the globe. This initiative by NCC is to provide a platform where service providers, the regulator, and the consumers will have an interactive session. It provides the unique opportunity for the telecom consumers to freely express their views, their grievances, and the challenges they face on the various networks they subscribe to. This forum has been rotated from one part of the country to another. About 73 editions were carried out in different locations in the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. It may interest you to know that the outcome of this parliament has led to various regulations by the NCC. We have the Consumer Outreach Program and the Town Hall Meeting. It is the tradition of the event to feature a forum of discussion where experts in the telecom industry would exchange ideas. And it will also help in throwing light on topical issues of interest in the telecom industry. Our topic for discussion today is broadband penetration, an imperative for national development. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I will welcome you once again to this 10th anniversary. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Hajia Mariam Bayi, Director, Consumer Affairs Bureau. It's now time for us to listen to the opening remarks of the Executive Vice Chairman of the Commission, Dr. Eugene Jua. Let's hear it for him, please.
Let me start by expressing my delightfulness in welcoming all of you to this unique event, marking the 10th anniversary of the Consumer Parliament, which has a theme, broadband penetration, an imperative for national development. Ladies and gentlemen, the next revolution in our regulatory agenda is broadband. Acknowledging the role of broadband to national development, the federal government has taken several steps, including the articulation of a national broadband plan, as well as continually taking steps at providing an enabling environment for the development of infrastructure that will support the growth and access to broadband services at affordable cost to the consumers. The framework to support the broadband infrastructure has been fully articulated and is being implemented by the Commission as reflected in the open access model adopted for the country. The recent successful auctioning of one slot of 30 megahertz bandwidth in the 2.3 gigahertz spectrum in February this year is a step towards the successful rollout of broadband services through the open access framework in Nigeria. In the drive towards the provision of pervasive broadband infrastructure, challenges do exist. Some of these challenges are: 1. Issues of right-of-way. 2. Multiple regulations. 3. Multiple taxation by several levels of government. Vandalization of telecommunication infrastructure. And last but not the least, security challenges in some areas of the country. I'd like to assure you that government is addressing all these challenges. Some of them are quite difficult, while some of them, a lot of success has been achieved in addressing them. The impact of broadband penetration on national development is immense. It stimulates economic growth, increases productivity, provides citizens access to government activities, as well as enhances e-application like e-health, e-commerce, e-education, e-banking. And this list is by no means all exhaustive. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude this speech by restating that the stage has been set for broadband revolution in the country. I also wish to reiterate the commitment of the Commission to enforce a regulatory framework that will facilitate the penetration and provide universal access to broadband in the country. Thank you very much.
Dr. Eugene Jua, EVC, Nigerian Communications Commission. It is now time for us to take the message from the Minister. Honorable Minister, please.
It is with pleasure and gratitude to the Almighty God that I address you today at the occasion of the 10th anniversary of the Telecom Consumer Parliament holding here in Lagos. The theme of today's event is broadband penetration, an imperative for national development. I must say here that this theme could not have come at any other better time than now, when the present administration of Mr. President Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan is putting emphasis on broadband deployment in order to achieve a reasonable and acceptable level of penetration going beyond the internationally recommended value. Government is quite aware of the fact that high level of broadband penetration will result in affordability and greater access to telecommunications and ICT facilities and services, which will in turn give rise to socio-economic development of the nation. It is in this regard that government has given high priority to the deployment of broadband infrastructure so as to ensure that there is a great and high-level penetration to both unserved and the underserved areas within the country for the benefit of all. To achieve this great task of broadband penetration in the country and in compliance with the ITU directive, the Nigeria administration, in her determination through the ministry in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, set up a presidential committee on broadband to come up with 5 viable plans to address the broadband challenges. The committee was able to develop and come up with a broadband plan 2013 to 2018 with clear roadmap to achieving greater penetration. This plan had since been approved by the Federal Executive Council. In order for government to achieve increase in broadband penetration, the committee in its report encouraged government to establish policies that regard ICT networks and installation as critical national infrastructure that qualify for special government protection. Promote transparency of pricing and reduction of build-out costs by encouraging an increased level of infrastructure sharing and interconnections and introducing price caps where necessary or where market forces fail. Take necessary regulatory measures to ensure better performance levels in the delivery of broadband services. Facilitate rapid rollout of wireless and wireline infrastructure and provide incentives to encourage a national 3G wireless coverage to at least 80% of the population by 2018. Timely release of more spectrum for broadband services. Foster attractive investment climate by targeting schemes for stimulating demand and providing targeted concessions, tax incentives, grants, or support where needed. Raise digital literacy and inclusion by using existing national assets for community access. Advocate and demonstrate the benefits of broadband within the levels of government and also among the people. One of the provisions in the plan is the establishment of a broadband council to ensure that the plan is implemented in full. The council is already inaugurated and working in earnest to deliver on mandate, which is 100% broadband penetration in the country. I want to use this medium to encourage this gathering of today as you celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Telecom Consumer Parliament to come up with useful suggestions, as always, that will assist government and the Commission in policy direction and regulatory framework, respectively, towards achieving greater broadband penetration for national development. I wish you a happy anniversary celebration and fruitful deliberation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, the Minister of Communications and Technology, Mr. Joseph Tegbe of KPMG. And he'll be talking to us about broadband penetration, an imperative for national development.
Thank you very much. What I'll be presenting in the next 30 minutes thereabout, it's broadband penetration, an imperative for national development. So what is broadband? ITU defines broadband as transmission capacity that is faster than 1.5 or 2.0 megabits per second. Now, for some of us in telecoms sector, we will say 1.5, 2.0, there's no big deal about it. In some parts of the country today, we're experiencing 1.5 already, or 2.0 already. But in most parts of the country today, we are not experiencing at all. As such, and if you listen to the minister's speech, broadband within the Nigerian context is defined as an internet experience where users can actually access the most demanding content in real time and at a minimum speed of 1.5. And we're talking across all geopolitical zones. So it is not about accessing broadband in Lagos and not being able to access broadband in Katsina. Hence, the key objectives of the next generation broadband model are to achieve high level of broadband penetration across all geopolitical zones in the country, also ensure competitive and affordable pricing of high-speed broadband internet. So the prices are not radically different because because I live in Uvu, in Borno State. I don't have huge disadvantage by living in Oyo town to access broadband compared to the people in Lagos. And also for us to position Nigeria as infrastructure hub in Africa. To also ensure development of smart subsidies to support industry players. In all the researches I've done and I've seen, I've not seen anywhere you've seen broadband revolution without government similar intervention in one way or the other. Because broadband is seen as a driver of the economy and national development. And also to contribute to the growth and development of the knowledge economy of Nigeria. Those are the objectives that are set out. What do we see as the common trends for the future in telecom sector? When you look at the common trends that we see in the future for telecom sector, we're looking at situations where we start to wear electronic devices in the next mobile revolution. Your wristwatch becomes everything to you. Sometimes your glasses, actually, you have a chip on your glasses, and you can actually do a lot of things. Phone call can be made, and the rest of them can, you can actually watch videos and the rest of them on a small, right on your phone, on your screen. We see telecoms and public policy taking a central role. We see increased public investment, critical to the goal of universal access in developing markets. A country as small as Rwanda, for its ICT backbone project, financed it entirely with $40 million. It might sound small, but it's huge for a country like Rwanda. We need to achieve higher returns on speedy broadband. We're going to see situations where we have bundles that include devices, TV, online content, super fast broadband, all converging on one device. We're going to see very interactive TVs where it will almost seem like the TV itself is engaging the TV user. We're already seeing 3D. We're going to see 4D. Today we are seeing even movies where the shapes of human beings are actually being reflected. The future is connected TVs and connected devices, where on one device you can actually watch TV, you can make phone call, you can do anything you want to do. And with all this happening, we envisage increased customer intelligence. Consumers are going to ask for more from the operators and for the service providers. What does this lead us to? We see this leading to a highly connected digital world, where what we call the big data holds the key. Either we like it or not, what we are seeing today, we're going to see 8 times increase in global IP traffic over the next. We've seen that over the last 5 years. Do you know that 90% of the data that exists in the world today that you have on the internet, they were created just in the last 2 years? Internet has been in existence for over 10 years, but the 90% of data on the internet today were created in the last 2 years. So imagine what will happen, the kind of data that we'll have in the next 10 years. When you look at the number of years that will take one individual, as of today, to watch video content that are crossing IP networks in each month in 2016, it will take the guy 6 million years to tell you the volume of content that we have existing. As of today, 10 billion messages are delivered by WhatsApp every day. So we're looking at the revolution of huge volume of data going forward. Consequently, what most countries have done is to develop and implement broadband plans. It's also increasingly clear to countries that are aspiring to be in the front of innovation, global trade, and knowledge leadership that the next generation broadband network rollout is critical. And that's why you have UK. The first of all set a target of 40% of access at home by 2012 at 100 megabits per second. They revised it to a target in 2015 of 100 megabits per second for 75% household. They revised it further to 90% of household by 2017 at 100 megabits per second. So every forward-looking country, just as we have done in Nigeria, and as was stated in the Honorable Minister's speech, we have come up with our own broadband plan. You have to have a broadband plan to be part of the next world. And we also look at various case studies various countries are investing in broadband. And I will not bore you with details of this. Canada invested a lot. $250 million is invested each year for the last from 1996 to 2006, over 10 years. So $2.5 billion in their broadband plan. Malaysia, the same thing. Brazil is investing heavily. Japan, the same thing. Korea, Netherlands. Let's look at what's the impact of broadband. While Nigeria has been witnessing steady economic growth, but we still face with poverty, unemployment, and huge infrastructure shortfalls. And broadband has been proven to drive GDP growth, literacy levels, and even employment. Today, our GDP growth is about 6.6%. Our adult literacy in Nigeria is about 61%. Our unemployment rate is about 24%. The population below poverty line is about 62.6. Now, we could see that when you look at the ranking of competitiveness index, we are not very attractive in terms of infrastructure and technology readiness. And this poses some challenges and things that we need to address. Furthermore, you could see the relationship between broadband penetration, which is measured through network readiness index, and literacy rates. If you see the countries on the extreme right, these are countries with high literacy rates. It's been proven that there's a direct correlation between broadband penetration and even GDP per capita. These are OECD countries that were studied, and you could see that the countries that have higher broadband penetration have higher GDP per capita, which means there are countries that are actually they are wealthier and they are wealthy per human head in those countries. We've seen impact of broadband in even countries close to us, and digitalization in Kenya, India, Bangladesh, in the area of education, health, which EVC mentioned, learning, long-distance learning, and the rest of them. But conclusively, it said that an increase of 10% in the country's digitalization score fuels about 1% growth in GDP per capita. And also that 10-point increase in digitization score leads to 1% drop in unemployment rate. An increase of that same 10% in the country's digitization score also leads to an increase of 0.1 point in e-government development index. So it's clear that these countries are investing in broadband and digitization, or because this actually helps to grow their economy, helps to reduce unemployment rate, and helps to actually increase e-government activities. What's the current state of broadband in Nigeria? When you look at internet usage in select African countries, because of our population, it's high. We have almost 50 million internet users in Nigeria. Well, that is internet users. These 50 million people don't have access in their homes or don't have access on their own. They have to go to cyber cafe so as a group to have access. And you could see that from 2000, just like we have in mobile telephone revolution, mobile voice revolution, from 2000 to 2011, you see that there has been a significant increase in terms of internet usage. However, the broadband penetration itself, and I will tell you, is about just 6%. Because this represents about 36% in terms of usage of internet. And the key learning or drivers of this, that the impediment on high access costs is lessening over time because of international broadband that is coming to Nigeria, and significant increase in the number of players and service providers, the MTNs of this world, the Glo, the Etisalats, and the Airtel. You see that international prices on connectivities are declining, But more work is needed to ensure that benefits reach the market and reach the hinterland. There are investments in national backbone networks. This is increasing, but more wholesale competition is also needed. There's an aggregation network today. We mostly rely on microwave in Africa and suffer from a lack of competition. You find that in Africa, maybe aside from South Africa, microwave remains prevalent technology for connecting stations. South Africa is emerging as a notable exception to the services of the dark fiber agency. And this is in line with what other countries are also doing. Broadband services, more widely available, but high prices have constrained take-up in the market. Nigeria today, like we said earlier on, we've undergone rapid transformation on account of liberalization of telecom sector. When you look at the voice segment, we have a tele-density as of July last year of 85%. With a subscriber base at that of 120 million. EVC stated this morning it's 127 million. That's huge. We were the fastest growing in voice segment in the entire world for about 5-6 years running. I think it was just recently that one country overtook us in terms of rate of growth. But when we look at that data segment, what do we see? We see an internet penetration, which is like what I stated earlier on, about 50 million people, about 32.9. But broadband penetration rate of about 6.1%, which is why I highlighted that in red. This underscores the demand for data services and opportunities for telecom companies. Over 50 million active internet subscribers, they are mostly through mobile devices. So when you take your phone, your Nokia phone or whatever phone, and you go to Google. But we have increased adoption of social media, even in Nigeria today. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, all sorts today. Online shopping in Nigeria was estimated to be about 62 billion naira worth of business in 2011. It's with the potential to reach about 150 billion this year. It means there are opportunities in data services. Obviously, there is evident demand for broadband internet services in Nigeria. The problem is supply. Some of the challenges that we're faced with respect to broadband development in Nigeria, poor infrastructure sharing among industry players is improving recently. Inability to drive data into broadening regions of the country at affordable prices. Lack of metropolitan fiber mesh network in cities in Nigeria. High costs of deployment of fiber. An inconsistency in administrative procedures, multiple taxation, high right of way charges. The Ministry of Communication Technology intervened, and they're still intervening in harmonizing some of this. But effective deployment of fiber optic network will ensure even playing field among telecoms operators and enhance the achievement of our nation's e-economic goals. And it's extremely important that that is addressed. We're a nation in which, in terms of submarine cable operators, we have almost like 9 terabytes of capacity at the shores of Nigeria. That's a huge capacity. Even Singapore, as reputed as Singapore is, in terms of broadband and everything, Singapore has only about 1 terabyte of capacity at the shore. We have multiple intercity backhaul infrastructure. Most of the operators have laid out fiber across the country. They have national ring. MTN has national ring. Glo has. So that's not where we have issues. The metropolitan fiber to nodes and neighborhoods, we have limited coverage. And then the last mile connection to homes and businesses so that you can enjoy broadband services, we also have challenges there. Those are two areas that the study that was done by NCC saw a huge gap that needs to be filled. So what's the imperative for Nigeria today? It's a case for open access broadband deployment in Nigeria. Based on various challenges in the country and the trends that we see, there's need to bridge the gaps in broadband deployment through deployment of new fiber and leveraging existing fiber infrastructures, which are the intercity rings that we have. We also need to make available the new network infrastructure and services to all telecom operators on a fair and non-discriminating basis at a regulated price. For us to minimize duplication of rollout and unnecessary environmental impact that it has, so that we don't have every operator digging and laying fiber all over the city. Also need to facilitate faster and wider broadband penetration nationwide, increasing the sharing of infrastructure and helping us to realize the objective of our national broadband plan, which is the minimum speed of 1.5 megabits per second to the general population and not to the selected few. The open access model is a typical utility model where you have the passive infrastructure, those who lay the dark fiber, and then you have the wholesale operator who is responsible for design, build, and operation of active next generation fiber network. And then you have the retail service providers, which are your ISPs and the rest of them, right at the top. This is not a new model. It's practiced in other parts of the world. And I show you some examples here. Some of you, they have variances. You can have equal access model, you can have utility model, you can have passive fiber model, you can have vertically integrated. So you have Singapore, France, Canada, UK, all these countries have practiced various variants of open access model. The benefit of open access model for us, both consumers, the operators, as follows. It serves to ensure that all operators enjoy equal and fair access to fiber through its central deployment by an infrastructure provider, Infraco, on a subsidized basis. Today, if you're a small operator, you want to connect and you need services of another operator, you need to go into negotiation. Small and mid-sized operators whose assets have previously been hindered by existing large operators are provided equal access to the required fiber infrastructure and can compete on a fair basis. You're going to have consistency across board, where right-of-way permits are currently granted by different authorities and agencies in an incongruent manner. Operators resort to deploying fiber without consistency in terms of rules. This will ensure that all fiber deployment is done by Infraco alone, resulting in consistency across board. You can have standardized costing formula where fiber costs offered by Infraco will include all costs of deployment and maintenance. We can have coordinated digging of our routes so that we don't have routes being dug. Somebody is digging on the right side, the other person is digging on the left side. Consequently, NCC proposed this model, which is the model where you have the passive network layer, you have the wholesale bandwidth services, and you have the retail service providers. Now, this doesn't alter the existing licenses and the players in the industry as it is, because the vertically integrated companies like the GSM operator still continues to operate. However, the key thing is to introduce the Infraco wholesale operator, who actually will lay fiber across the country in each of the geopolitical zones, especially the metropolitan fiber, not to repeat the intercity fibers that the operators have already laid, and will not compete at the retail level. You also see that we have an independent OPCO or wholesale provider, which are Axteris there, which is the 2.3 gigahertz licensee. This is to fill in the gap at the metropolitan fiber level and at the wholesale service level, so that we can then have access to broadband as a nation. This Infraco, what will it do? The Infraco, in the open access model, which the EVC mentioned, which I've also expanded on, will provide wholesale layer 2 transmission services on a non-discriminating services. We will focus on deployment of metropolitan fiber and provide transmission services available at access points. That's fiber to the node or fiber to neighborhood. It will also leverage intercity fiber that already existed and provided by Glo, MTN, and the rest of the operators. Its customers will include a wholesale wireless last mile operator like the 2.3 gigahertz in the global economy to be the 28th largest economy in the world by 2020. Leapfrogging our knowledge economy through broadband is imperative. And I'll tell you that other great nations like Australia, Indonesia, US, UK, Brazil, China, Malaysia, India, Singapore have all developed their own robust plans and are implementing those plans. Nigeria must not be left behind. Thank you very much.
The session will be looking at having the experts seated around the table here, or seated on the chair here, to give their insights into what broadband actually means from their understanding, though we've gotten a very lucid presentation from Mr. Tegbe. I would like to start from the representative of Min1.
From our view, we always like to respond with the challenges that we have as a company, and we are aware that there's broadband penetration. We are aware that there are policies in place to make sure that everybody has access to broadband. We're also aware of the challenges that are in the country. For us as a company, we have access to infrastructure challenge. We have demand uptake challenge. You know, if we take our broadband to maybe a state like in the rural areas, we're not sure if we'll have services, people will take up our services probably because they don't understand what they need to use broadband for. So that brings us to another challenge where we think of awareness. We have that as well. But we are also aware that there's a national broadband plan that takes care of all of those challenges. And we are impressed with the NCC. We are impressed with the Ministry of Communications. We believe that with all of this awareness and stakeholders' input, we would get to the promised land.
Definitely, I know when we talk broadband, a lot of people are confused. What is the difference between internet and broadband? Well, I can say it's the same thing, but broadband is faster. And when we have broadband, we do things faster. As you know, we started as GSM operators from 2G with slow internet. We moved to 3G, and I'm sure with broadband plan coming up, LTE, which is faster, almost three times the speed you are using now, will soon come up. So this broadband will give you a lot of opportunities. And when we are talking of the economic impact, it's so enormous to people because we are going e-everything now. E-commerce, e-government, e-everything. We are going there. And it's unfortunate. You can see what happened to the immigration exam. Concentration of people, a lot of people in the same venue is so sad. With broadband, people can do all these things from home. You can do your exam, you can fill your form, you can do a lot with broadband. And I'm sure with the plan by NCC, within the next 18 months, we have that opportunity.
It's important that we bring home what broadband is. Broadband is going to change the way we work, the way we play, the way we do business. It's going to affect every area of our lives. It is something that we will not be able to do without. Broadband is social capital. It is something that we have to build our country on. It is going to change the way we do everything we're doing in Nigeria today. I think in the presentation by Mr. Tegbe, it was clear that to make this happen, it cannot be done by operators or the private sector alone. We must see very strong and active support and participation by government.
I would like to say some few things that will probably enable you to envision a little bit about the capacity and capability of broadband. We all know about the Industrial Revolution. It started by the discovery of the steam engine. And then electricity came, and it took the Industrial Revolution to another level entirely. In fact, when electricity was invented, they did not really understand exactly everything it could do. But today we know that everything is powered by electricity, energy. So it is with broadband. We've talked about the tremendous bandwidth that we have at our shores, and very soon these bandwidths are going to be moved inwards. And some of my colleagues also talked about content to fill this bandwidth. But I need you to understand that seated amongst us here are lots of creative people that are going to come out with all kinds of content that you are not even thinking about right now. And these contents are going to be powered by broadband. Broadband is so wonderful that you don't need to be a big business to have a global presence. You can operate from your village and be able to reach the whole world. It gives you access to markets unimaginable, local, state, national, international.
As a service provider, all right, what are your contributions towards the realization, or what has been your contributions towards the realization of the objectives of broadband in Nigeria so far? The National Broadband Plan, I'm sure you must have seen it, and there are a couple of objectives and frameworks in there to be achieved, and there are goals also to be achieved. What is Salat as an organization doing to provide Nigerians with some of those services?
Involved, obviously, in a lot of the work to do with the putting together the broadband plan. So we contributed in that respect. Now, in terms of actualizing what contributions we are putting out there to support this, we're obviously a key player in the last mile side of it, because you can use our access and our technologies and network to deliver the last mile to the consumers. We've invested in coverage, so we're making sure we're available across the country, and in 5 years of operations, I can say we've reached about 70% of the total population, so we continue to ensure that we're available throughout the country. We're also investing a lot in our own transmission capacity so that we have the backbone to support the growth here. One of the things we also do outside of direct business is support the educational sector in terms of what we do there. So we've put in a learning academy, for example, in one of our key universities, where we're focusing on telecoms engineering so that we can produce the sort of skills that can come out and take advantage of this broadband revolution that is happening.
As for Globacom, you know, we foresee this growth in broadband, and we were the first to launch a private submarine cable with the highest capacity in the country as of today. That is Glo 1. We are proud to tell Nigerians that we are present with our fiber backbone in at least 30 states of the Federation as of today. We are trying to identify major cities with metro fiber, and we have covered about 8 cities as of today with metro fiber. So the only constraint we have is just the last mile. And as you know, once the resources is available, we thought if 2.3 were to be retail, we could have gone much for it, and we could have been able to tell Nigerians that come 6 months, virtually every major homes in state capitals, we have broadband available. We hope that with the resources available for last mile, we'll be able to get broadband. We'll be able to lead all operators in broadband penetration.
Look, I think that in addressing the issues of broadband, we need to look at the supply side and the demand side. As a responsible operator, very, very quickly, we saw the opportunities, we saw the challenges, and we saw that it has to be in collaboration with government. Private sector can't do it alone. We invested, first of all, in a microwave backbone. Very, very quickly realized that microwave would not be enough to address the capacity. We started to invest in fiber. Today, we have fiber across the length and breadth of Nigeria. We also realized, before a lot of people did, that the way forward was data. So when the NCC, I think in 2006, decided to launch 3G, to auction 3G licenses, people all over the world were saying, it's not time for 3G, you've barely gotten your teeth into 2G, but we were confident about the potentials of this market, about the direction of the regulatory environment. We invested in a 3G license in 2006, and today we are positioned for 4G, which is broadband LTE. On the demand side, we also realized that there's no point building all this capacity and there's no take-up. Now, what are we doing to stimulate the demand side? One, we're encouraging young people. We're doing a lot of things in areas of getting our young people to develop applications. We're helping them and teaching them how to turn those applications into money so that they can see the value. We're sharing a lot of our resources with our universities, with our secondary schools, and bringing them into this new world, this new broadband world. So I dare say that the future is bright, and we think that this is the market to be. We look forward to the opportunities that would be available.
But Airtel would like to distinguish as follows. In terms of network and infrastructure, what has happened is post the 2007 3G license acquisition, the last 4 years, we've determined a clear strategy of positioning for 3G mobile broadband dominance in the 3G space, pending when spectrum is available for 4G. So we were actually the first network operator that covered major cities in this country, all states of the country, key locations in all states of this country with 3G access. That was achieved in 2012, early 2012. That was a landmark for Airtel in its march towards supporting broadband acquisition in the country and penetration. We have also currently considering running some tests on existing spectrum, 4G potentially, pending when formally kickoff will be allowed by the NCC. In terms of devices, because you must have devices, our brother Joseph did say that in spite of the large number of internet penetration, high internet penetration, there's an issue. How many people have access to their own devices? Most of us will go to cyber cafes to access the internet. So we realize there's a gap there. And what we have been doing is to aggressively work with the OEMs, equipment manufacturers, the Samsungs and the Nokias, and other emerging ones, to see how we can push devices, handsets, and accessories, such accessories, as far as possible into the hands of you and I. That's key for usage of broadband and access. Then for content and application, because that's the heart of it. Broadband is, applications, content, etc. are what drives broadband in essence. So we have had a number of interfaces, relationships ongoing with a number of agencies and bodies to see what can be done. We also are supporting local content in that regard. A number of young people have come to us and we are supporting them.
From a regulatory perspective, what are the challenges that you see in taking the broadband access, taking the capacity from the shores all the way to the hinterland?
But from a regulatory perspective, the regulator has been doing a lot to ameliorate some of these challenges. Like you all know, one of the issues has to do with, for example, fiber cuts. And the regulator has been pushing hard, working with other stakeholders to see to it that telecom infrastructure is declared a critical national infrastructure. and hence giving the necessary protection. Also, from a regulatory perspective, we've noticed that the market, the way it is, or rather the way it was not designed to actually take bandwidth from the shores to the hinterlands. I mean, our operators are all vertically integrated, and they built their networks and designed them to suit their own purposes. Even when they have to sell to other players, they sell to them at prices that they like, and that in itself does not encourage. In fact, that actually kills off ISPs. So the Commission looked at it critically and decided to sort of desegment the market, realign the market in such a way that it will be easy for small players to play, realign the market in such a way that small players and big players will be able to have access to bandwidths without discrimination whatsoever. So that gave birth to the open access model. And like the EVC has spoken, and Joseph Tegwe also spoke about, the open access model has been, implemented in several jurisdictions. So Nigeria, we articulated that which is peculiar to our situation, taking into cognizance the present players that we have in the field. So the open access model for Nigeria definitely will address all these challenges that we talked about. The regulator also has been working very hard with the ministry to discuss with the state governments these issues of multiple taxation, and also the Ministry of Communication has been working very hard also to address the issue of multiple regulation also. So those are issues that we are working and fighting very hard to resolve. And going forward, for sure, we are going to have a better broadband environment in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. We hope that the operators here seated will live up to their promises and live up to their obligations of not only providing broadband services to teeming Nigerians, but also making sure that that service is service that is reliable and that consumers continue to get value for money. Thank you very much.
My name is Muhyiddin Mohammed. I have a blue modem here. When I connect, as I'm connecting, it's disconnecting. In fact, I wanted to go to maybe somewhere and do a rally and say, what's this service that they are giving to us?
My name is Dr. Iwanyamu Martins of Leadership Watch. First of all, I would like to commend NCC for continuing this good work, because if we haven't had this platform, we won't have a way to really express the way we feel about all of this whole thing. I want to ask this question first to the panelists, because I heard Mr. Aremu of Glo say they are going to roll out 3G. I use Glo modem, and what they made me to understand is that they have 3G. And for those of us who have had the opportunity of traveling to other countries, when we see 3G working, we know 3G. And then when we see 4G, we also know what 4G is. I want to ask, do we really have 3G?
First of all, your configuration matters. You understand? And most of the time, people don't actually configure their devices correctly. So please, if you put your devices on 3G only, if you are moving out of 3G coverage to 2G, it won't switch. Then you have the problem and say it's dropping. So please, my people are outside, meet them to check your configuration. Thank you. For the second question, whether we are offering 3G or 2G. Well, it's also related to the first question. If you are on 3G coverage, you realize that you have a fast internet. Immediately you move out of 2G coverage. If you configure very well, 3G coverage, if you configure very well, it moves to 2G. Then your speed goes down. So it's possible as you are moving, as you are roaming from one place to the other, from 3G to 2G, the speed will change. So please, you check and you see where you are, whether you are on edge or you are 3G, and you see it. That's the speed we guarantee. So please, that's what we have. The 3G, we don't have national coverage of 3G as of today. So please bear with us. We are working hard to make sure that we cover the country with 3G. But we don't have the national coverage. But wherever you are, we assure you that you will have the minimum speed of 2G.
Happy birthday, TCP.
We thank you all. We say NCC is always living to its promises, always delivering on their promises. We thank you for coming. Once again, we wish you journey masses back to your destinations, and God bless you.